Welcome to the Sky Commander Flight Brief. It's your mission-ready podcast for drone pilot training and aerial insights across Canada.
From Transport Canada rules to real-world drone ops, we break it down, take you higher, and help you earn your wings. Because here at skycommander.ca, we don't just fly.
It hints there's more to it. It's a masterclass, a deeper level, maybe a philosophy or a community focus, perhaps.
It's definitely intriguing, sets them apart from just, a basic tips show. SkyCommander.ca is the obvious next step. Precisely. If you're thinking about flying a drone in Canada, boom, this content is aimed right at you.
Powered by SkyCommander.ca.
The elite podcast for Canada's drone pilot. Okay, let's get started.
For years, the image of the drone industry has really been one person standing in a field, with a tablet.
Yep, eyes in the aircraft.
Exactly. But that whole era is, it's ending. We're moving really quickly toward these industrial-scale air operations. We're talking automated flights that go beyond visual line of sight as a matter of routine.
And missions that run 24/7. This shift is, it's so much more than just a technological upgrade. It really demands a complete re-architecture of safety, of accountability, and control.
Right. You can't run a scalable drone airline or, say, manage a national infrastructure inspection network by just having individual pilots scattered all over the ground.
You just can't. You need a centralized brain.
And that brain is the RPAS Operations Center, the control room. It's the nerve center that manages these automated fleets. And this is the crucial part. It owns the enterprise risk for every single mission. So our mission today is to pull back the curtain on this facility. We've synthesized a whole stack of real-world scenarios, some organizational manuals, and most importantly, the regulatory context that's emerging from proposals like the FAA's Part 108.
And with that, we can show you exactly what it takes to run a drone operation at scale.
We're going to define the new command chain. We'll examine the sophisticated displays that are designed to prevent human cognitive overload.
And we'll dissect the procedural infrastructure. The systems, the communication protocols, and the absolutely critical handoffs that allow these complex BVLOS missions to even happen safely.
And it's important to note, the control room isn't always this, big physical room with blinking lights like in the movies.
Right. It can be a temporary mobile unit. Think like a ruggedized trailer or even one of those FBI van setups.
Or increasingly, it's a purely virtual cloud-based platform you can access from anywhere. But no matter what it looks like, the core function is always the same. The mental model you should hold is this. It functions as air traffic control, but for your own commercial fleet.
That's a great way to put it. And if you take one thing away from this deep dive, let it be this core philosophy.
Okay.
Automation flies. The control room decides.
Automation flies, the control room decides. I like that.
The machine, it handles the thousands of mundane, pre-approved tasks within its flight envelope. But the human element, centralized in that control room, that's what handles the exceptions, the judgment calls, the complex coordination, and the ultimate acceptance or rejection of mission risk.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We can move beyond the theory and look at 5 distinct real-world scenarios. And each one of these demonstrates the fundamental functions of any control room.
Right.
First, you have to see everything that matters. Then you have to decide what happens next based on all that data. And finally, you have to meticulously prove what happened for, compliance and safety improvement later on.
And these scenarios are so vital because they immediately shift the focus of safety oversight away from just the airframe itself.
Which might have some basic detect and avoid tech.
Exactly. It shifts the focus to the system level, the whole organization, the procedures, the training, which, that is the entire thrust of modern BVLOS regulation.
Let's start with a classic commercial application, a utility BVLOS corridor mission.
A routine one.
A routine one. So imagine you are supervising a 40-kilometer BVLOS inspection of a power line corridor. This task gets repeated, hundreds of times a year?
At least. And the goal is simple. Eliminate the need for crews to drive out and physically check every single tower. It's about efficiency and safety.
So because this is such a high-volume, repeatable process, the workload and the accountability have to be strictly segregated.
Oh, absolutely. The days of the do-it-all pilot are over. In what we'd call a Stage 2 mission room, you have an ops supervisor, who is the shift boss. They are accountable for the entire operational window.
Okay.
Then you, as the flight coordinator or FC, you might be actively supervising 2, maybe even 3 aircraft at the same time.
And it's the supporting cast that really makes it safe.
Precisely. You have a dedicated airspace monitor. Their sole job is to watch for non-cooperative manned traffic.
So anything without a transponder or something flying low and fast?
Exactly. Then you have a safety officer. They're tracking crew workload, making sure checklists are followed, verifying that everything is compliant with the mission manual.
And what about the data?
That's the data, or mission specialist. They are focused purely on the images coming back from the drone. They're not worried about altitude or battery life. They're looking for defects, for cracks, for corrosion.
So if you're the FETC, your console is this multi-screen workstation, and it's designed specifically to fight cognitive tunneling. You aren't just staring at a video feed.
No, you can't be. You have a detailed map screen showing that whole 40-kilometer corridor, the planned route, what we call the 4D operational intent, and the live tracks of your drones.
Okay, and then another screen for the drone's health.
Yep, the health in situ screen. It's like the drone's EKG. It's showing you minute-by-minute battery usage, signal strength, the quality of that command and control link, and the current flight mode. Is it in auto? Is it holding?
Plus the raw sensor feed and, I'm guessing, a screen for logs.
The crucial checklist and log screen. That's what tracks procedures and provides the audit trail you need to prove everything later.
So let's run a scenario. A critical but pretty common event. Scenario 1. A C2 wobble.
Okay.
You're about halfway through the corridor, and the command and control signal for, let's say, drone 4 drops to a level 2 caution alert. The indicator on your screen turns yellow, and the latency spikes to about 7% packet loss.
Okay, this is a perfect example of where the automation proves its worth, but also where the human earns their salary.
Also,
The automation system, it immediately detects that degradation, and it initiates the procedure for a loss link contingency. It starts preparing to climb to a pre-approved safe loiter altitude near the power line.
so it's securing the aircraft.
It's securing the aircraft until a human can weigh in. As the flight coordinator, you acknowledge that alert. The ops supervisor is immediately notified about the level 2 caution.
And now you have to figure out what's going on.
Right. You check the system dashboard. Is this localized? Maybe a specific communication repeater is acting up, or is the entire sector seeing signal degradation? The airspace monitor reports no traffic nearby.
And now comes the human decision point. The ops sup asks you, do we have enough margin to ride this out, or do we prioritize safety?
And in a high-reliability organization, that decision almost always leans toward conservatism, especially if that packet loss is creeping up.
So as the F2IAC, you choose to be conservative. You command the drone to return to base immediately.
You do. And why? Because while the drone could potentially fly for another minute in that degraded state, the risk of losing the link entirely, forcing an emergency landing somewhere you don't control, is just too high to justify finishing a routine inspection.
So the takeaway is clear. Automation keeps the drone safe temporarily, but the human decides if the mission is still worth the risk.
The FC owns that risk threshold. Now let's look at another one, scenario 2. The near miss you didn't see.
Okay, this is scary. Because you're operating BVLOS, you have no human eyes on that aircraft or anywhere along that 40-kilometer route.
And suddenly the airspace monitor calls out, traffic alert, low-level helicopter converging from the west, estimated 3 minutes to conflict.
This is the moment where that fused data becomes absolutely necessary.
It is. The airspace monitor is leveraging integrated feeds, ADS-B, maybe some radar tracks, even cellular data from low-flying aircraft, and synthesizing all of that onto the map display. Their situational awareness is far superior to anything the drone's onboard system could manage alone.
So as the FTC, you immediately command Drone 3 into a whole D state within its airspace reservation.
And the safety officer is monitoring your action. Now, even though the airspace monitor reports that the helicopter is 500 feet below the drone, which is good altitude separation, the safety officer insists on a procedural lockdown.
But what does that mean?
Their statement, and this is noted in source manuals, is clear. Hold position until the helicopter has cleared the agreed-upon safety bubble. No show-off heroics relying on minimum separation.
That procedural rigor is what separates a certified organization from a hobbyist.
Absolutely. The safety officer is enforcing an extra layer of margin that goes way beyond the regulatory minimums. They're acting as the final check against human error or overconfidence.
And once the helicopter is clear, the mission resumes.
But critically, that event, even though no collision happened, is logged immediately as a near-miss potential. And it feeds right back into the safety management system for analysis. That is how the room mines its mistakes to improve future safety.
Okay, moving on. Let's turn up the automation dial with Drone in a Box, or DIB.
Right.
Here we're talking about fully autonomous gas leak inspections at a huge remote refinery complex, maybe hundreds of kilometers away. And there is zero human presence on site.
This is where the Ops Center truly shines as that remote brain. The structure here shows a very clean division of labor that is absolutely mandatory if you want to scale a distributed network.
So how exactly is that responsibility split between the physical box on the ground and the centralized control room?
The DIB, the physical dock, is the robot outpost. It handles only the local physical tasks, keeping the drone dry, keeping it charged, managing the weather sealing, and executing the automated launch and landing sequences.
It's basically a piece of reliable but dumb hardware.
That's a good way to put it. And the Ops Center, sitting hundreds of miles away, is the brain. It handles all the tasks that require regulatory oversight, scheduling, and risk judgment.
So they're managing approvals, scheduling which dock flies when?
Exactly. They maintain the C2 link status, supervise the entire distributed fleet, manage any exceptions, and coordinate emergencies. The flight coordinator here is supervisory. They arm and launch the mission right from their console and just monitor its progress against the plan.
Let's run the scenario here. Leak alarm during flight. The drone, it's equipped with a specialized optical gas imaging, or OGI, payload, and it suddenly flags a high methane concentration in a critical valve area.
Okay, the automation system processes that raw data instantly. It highlights the precise leak location on the map, it geotags the finding, timestamps it in the mission log, and then critically, it suggests a focused contingency action.
It suggests an action.
It suggests a lower altitude, slow rescan of that specific hot zone to confirm the finding. It's the machine offering a validated, pre-approved tactical response.
So the flight coordinator reviews the initial reading, confirms the drone's health is still good, and then approves that rescan. But their job doesn't stop there.
Not at all. The ops supervisor, who's been alerted to this level 3 warning, immediately gets on the phone with the refinery's human control room to coordinate a ground intervention. They translate that geotagged drone data into actionable instructions for the maintenance crews on site.
There's a fascinating piece here that goes back to that need to prove everything. The automated system, at the same time, is generating all the necessary compliance documents. Why is that specific automation so vital for the regulatory side of things?
Because it's not just about finding the leak. It's about proving to regulators, like the EPA under rules like OOAB, that the inspection was performed according to a very strict methodology and that the data is tamper-proof.
So it's creating a chain of custody.
It's creating an automatic chain of custody. It links the methane concentration reading, the precise GPS coordinates, the raw video clip, the timestamp, and the drone's unique ID. This data is often encrypted and stored in an immutable log.
So the magic of the control room is turning raw physics, a methane reading, into auditable, compliance-ready evidence.
Exactly. It's proving that the operation is both safe and legally compliant. The FEC is co-piloting a robotic inspector and coordinating the human fix on the ground.
Okay, our next stop is public safety, drone as first responder, or DFR. This involves drones auto-launching from docks located all across the city the moment a 911 call comes in nearby. The whole goal is to provide real-time aerial video intelligence to officers and dispatch before any human units can get there.
And this requires total integration into the municipal command structure, specifically what they call the Real-Time Intelligence Center, or RTIC hub. The drone operation is now part of the emergency dispatch workflow, managing not just air safety, but public safety risk.
The team in this RTIC has highly specialized. You have 911 and dispatch handling the calls. You have the DFR operator, that's you managing the drone, specialized intelligence analyst processing the video feed against other data.
And you have the watch commander. That's the senior officer who makes the final tactical decisions based on that whole combined data stream.
Let's run a scenario. A 911 call comes in for a suspicious person with a weapon. The computer-aided dispatch, the CAD system, confirms the location is near a DFR dock, and it auto-suggests launch DFR drone.
The DFR operator hits the button, initiates the launch. The drone automatically flies a predetermined path to a safe, high-altitude overwatch position, say 350 feet up, high enough not to interfere, but close enough to stream a high-def video feed.
And the DFR operator, monitoring that live stream, gains a critical piece of intelligence. They see the person, but they notice the item in their hand is clearly a wrench, not a firearm. And they seem to be working under the hood of a car.
That's the human insight layer proving its value. The DFR operator has to immediately relay this assessment, often using specialized, concise language, something like, no weapon observed, appears to be a mechanic or vehicle owner working on a car, no immediate threat detected.
And that single piece of information changes the tactical approach of the responding officers before they even arrive on scene.
It de-escalates the situation before it even begins.
I want to dig into that a bit. That scenario shows the system working perfectly. But what happens if the video quality is poor because of rain? Or maybe the drone arrives late? How does the Ops Center manage the risk of providing bad or ambiguous intelligence to officers who are already relying on that feed?
That is the core risk management challenge in DFR. It's a huge one. The Ops Center must have explicit standard operating procedures that define what constitutes actionable intelligence versus what is unusable data.
So there's a threshold.
There has to be. For example, if visibility is below a certain level, the SOP should require the DFR operator to relay something very specific. Visual confirmation is low quality. Status of weapon is unknown. Proceed with caution.
So they're communicating the uncertainty.
The ops supervisor ensures the operator never, ever overstates the certainty of the information. And on top of that, the intelligence analysts are cross-referencing the video with other known factors. Is this address a common location for auto repair? The entire system is built to provide information, but it also must communicate the confidence level of that information.
So it's about turning a video stream into actionable intelligence that minimizes the potential for escalation, whether that's confirming a non-threat or finding escape routes, searching for missing people with thermal, or providing overwatch on really high-risk scenes.
Exactly. The console operator is part of the tactical decision-making process. It's a very high-stress role that requires extensive training.
Now, let's look at complexity pushed to its absolute limit, the NASA Rome Center Remote Operations for Autonomous Missions.
Right. This is where the future rules of scaling and human supervision are being written. They are not trying to make money yet. They are studying human factors under extreme pressure.
And Roan is basically a hyper-realistic simulator, studying how M operators can manage N vehicles, so men-to-N operations.
It is, and an environment they create is crucial. It's what they call a live virtual constructive setup, or LVC.
Help me understand LVC. What does mixing reality and simulation actually look like in that control room?
Well, they fuse real telemetry and health data from drones that are actually flying outside with real-time radar and ADS-B traffic data. That's the live part.
Okay.
The virtual component is sophisticated simulation data. They can inject things like sudden high-altitude wind shears or simulated system malfunctions that look real to the operator.
And the constructive part.
That involves generating synthetic manned traffic or fake emergency alerts that appear completely real on the operator's screens.
So they are deliberately injecting chaos.
Exactly. Researchers systematically subject operators to stress. They'll inject conflicting alerts, where the drone's onboard sensor says one thing, but the ground control system suggests another. They degrade C2 links artificially.
So an operator's job might be to manage 3 drones, each with a different profile.
A very different profile. Drone A might be fully autonomous and quiet. Drone B requires frequent manual route approvals because of simulated weather. And Drone C has a known flaky sensor that's generating intermittent false alerts. The human has to distinguish the signal from the noise.
The methodology is fascinating. They log everything. Eye movements, physiological responses, reaction times, every single decision made.
Yeah.
It sounds so clinical. How does logging eye movements actually help prevent burnout?
It's all about designing the user interface to manage attention and cognitive load. If the data shows that an operator's eye is constantly drawn to a non-critical panel, or if they take too long to identify a level 3 warning hidden among a bunch of level 1 messages, then the UI is failing them.
So they're finding the breaking point.
They're finding the saturation level where the human can no longer safely supervise the fleet, and then they design displays and automation systems to operate below that threshold. It's about designing roles and software to prevent cognitive overload and fatigue before we try to scale the fleet size in the real world.
So in essence, they're using science to determine how many aircraft one person can safely manage and what that console needs to look like to keep them safe and sane.
Exactly right.
Our final scenario is a pivot to something totally different. Pure choreography. The drone light show control room. This involves managing hundreds or even thousands of drones at the same time for spectacular performance. This is M-to-N operations, but with a focus on synchronized aesthetics.
It's a swarm operation, and it's built on 2 things. high-precision positioning, and ruthlessly deterministic safety. The complexity here is in coordinating thousands of entities in a confined volume without a single mid-air collision, all while maintaining high artistic integrity.
And the preparation is key. This is not improvised on the night.
Oh, not at all. Weeks of planning. The animation is designed in 3D, and proprietary software runs hundreds of millions of collision checks on the flight paths to ensure there's adequate spatial separation down to the centimeter.
And safety parameters are set days before.
Right. Geofences that the drones cannot cross are set and approved by regulatory bodies, like the FAA, days before the performance.
So on the night of the show, the control room is a pretty compact setup, usually a tent or a trailer. What are the critical pieces of gear, and who is in that room?
The roles include the flight director or chief pilot, who holds the ultimate go-no-go authority. Then you have the show operator, who's executing the software launch and monitoring the status. And you have essential safety officers and observers who are physically watching the crowd and the local airspace.
And the gear.
It's specialized. A primary and a backup show controller running the choreography software, a high-precision, multi-constellation GNSS base station for hyper-accurate positioning correction.
Because normal GPS isn't good enough.
Not 4-centimeter level separation, no. And then you have a high-power proprietary ground radio transmitter for the command link.
Okay, let's look at the failure scenario. Mid-show alert. The system flags drone 84 GNSS quality low, deviating from planned path.
The safety system is designed to favor safety over artistry instantly. The automation software, which is tracking every single drone's position against its intended path, recognizes that deviation and immediately removes drone 84 from the choreography.
So the audience doesn't notice anything.
Its lights are turned off, and it's commanded to execute a safe contingency, usually a slow descent or a loiter, to a pre-planned safe landing zone well outside the display volume. The audience is none the wiser, but the safety integrity is maintained.
The insight here really is that blend of engineering and choreography.
It is. The system operates on the principle that if any component's reliability falls below a preset threshold, that component, that drone, is immediately and automatically isolated. The flight director ensures the performance volume is continuously safe.
So whether it's a power line inspection, a police mission, or a light show, Section 1 really confirms our core principles: see, decide, and prove.
Absolutely. So now we can shift focus pretty dramatically. Individual scenarios are one thing, but running a business that scales from 1 aircraft to 1,000, that requires a robust organizational and regulatory structure.
It's a whole new ballgame.
It is, and the core change, which is being driven by proposed rules like the FAA's Part 108, is moving from that waiver-era mentality where you proved a single flight was safe to the commercial-era mentality of proving your entire organization and your system is safe for sustained multi-site operations.
That is a massive paradigm shift. It means the control room isn't just an operational hub, it is the regulatory compliance center, where the paper trail meets the live operation.
Right. And when an operator wants to grow, they inevitably have to manage 3 primary scaling factors. We refer to these as the N, R, and A dials.
N, R, and A.
As these dials turn up, the complexity grows exponentially, and the scrutiny from regulators intensifies right along with it.
Okay, let's unpack those dials. N is for?
N is the number. This is just the sheer quantity of assets, aircraft, remote docks, or active operational sites you are managing concurrently. And doubling the number of aircraft more than doubles the workload because you also double the potential conflict and communication points.
And R is the risk.
Correct. This defines the complexity of the environment. Are you operating in rural, uncongested airspace? Or are you near busy airports, over densely populated cities, or near sensitive infrastructure? The higher the ground risk or airspace complexity, the more stringent the required procedures in that control room.
Which brings us to A.
And A is the level of automation. Are you flying manually with a remote stick input, or are you using sophisticated DID networks integrated with services like UTM unmanned traffic management for automated conflict resolution? Higher automation is more efficient, but it requires much higher technical maturity in the Ops Center to monitor the system's performance and respond when that automation fails.
So as those dials turn up, the organizational maturity has to increase. And our sources define some pretty clear tiers that correspond to this complexity.
They do. Stage 0 is the simplest. Field VLOS, classic Part 107 stuff. You're out there with the tablet. The pilot owns all the risk visually. No control room needed. Stage 1 is the single console remote. This is typical for the early BVLOS waivers we see today. 1 flight coordinator, a basic multi-monitor setup. They're handling all the roles. Flying, monitoring airspace, logging. It's remote, but it's not scalable yet.
And stage 2 is the mission room.
This is the target for most initial Part 108 operating certificates. You're running multiple concurrent missions or docs. You now require defined roles, multiple FCs, an Ops Sup, and airspace monitor. Procedures for handoffs and emergency protocols must be extensively documented.
This is the real shift from a person flying a drone to a team managing a system.
It is. And finally, you have Stage 3, the Network Operations Center, or NOC. This is mandatory for 247 coverage, national-scale utility networks, or critical infrastructure operations. It demands full redundancy, deep integration of the safety management system, and often hundreds of concurrent assets. NASA's Rome Center, even though it's research-focused, it embodies the maturity expected of a Stage 3 NOC.
And the proposed Part 108 rule formalizes this tiered structure by defining new operational roles that bring drone ops into line with traditional aviation standards.
Yeah, like Part 121 or 135, accountability is absolutely key.
And at the top of that accountability chain is the operations supervisor.
The Ops Sup. They are the shift captain, analogous to the director of operations in a manned airline. This person doesn't fly the stick. They own the paperwork, the procedures, and the safety culture.
What are their specific accountabilities that really set them apart from the FDC?
The Ops Sup is accountable for the entire operational framework. They approve the mission manual. They set the acceptable risk thresholds for the shift. They manage the training and crew competency structure. And, crucially, they authorize the meant-to-end aircraft ratio for that shift.
So if a system fails, the Ops Sup figures out the systemic fix.
Exactly. They hold the ultimate authority for the go-no-go decision based on staffing, weather, system health. They are the system owner.
That we have the person at the console, the flight coordinator. And that title coordinator seems very intentional.
It is. The FCSC is the mission controller. The term emphasizes supervisory oversight rather than manual stick-and-rudder piloting. The expectation under Part 108 is that the aircraft is highly automated. The FC monitors the system, manages the high-level mission trajectory, ensures conformance to the plan.
And provides that essential human judgment.
Right, to approve or reject the automated contingency actions.
Which brings us right to the bottleneck of scaling, the one-to-many constraint. Can an organization just declare that one FC is going to manage 10 drones?
No, they cannot. Part 108 currently proposes a one-to-one aircraft to FC baseline. That's the starting point for safety.
So you have to earn the right to scale up.
You have to earn that privilege. To get higher ratios, the organization has to prove reliability data for their specific automation system, demonstrate specialized training for the FCs in multi-aircraft management, and receive explicit regulatory approval. They have to prove that their systems, not just their pilots, are capable of sustaining safety at scale.
What about those specialized support roles we saw in the scenarios, like the airspace monitor?
They are non-negotiable for Stage 2 and 3 operations. The airspace monitor provides that essential fused air picture that an onboard system often can't. They track every manned aircraft via ADS-B, radar, or other surveillance, identifying potential conflict well outside the drone's immediate sensor range.
And the range safety officer.
The RSO monitors procedural adherence and crew workload, and they maintain the authority, often a physical button or a software command, to immediately terminate a mission or command an emergency landing if a critical safety procedure is violated. The RSO is the final backstop.
And we have the sensor specialist,
who ensures the quality of the data collection is maintained, which frees up the FSC to focus purely on the aircraft's safety. The core concept here is that operations personnel is a definition that expands accountability way beyond the cockpit. Anyone performing a safety-critical function in that ops center is accountable under these new rules.
We've defined the people and the rules. Now we have to dive into the infrastructure. This is where the rubber meets the road, the complex tech and procedural systems that stop a big operation from just descending into chaos.
This section is all about the meticulous discipline required to manage that complexity. You can't solve these problems with better hardware alone. You need rigid procedures and a culture built on communication and redundancy.
We've stressed that automation flies, but the control room decides. Let's get really specific about that division of labor. What can we truly rely on the machine to do consistently?
Okay, the automation handles all the physics-based execution. So trajectory execution, maintaining stability, the autopilot, strictly conforming to geofences and altitude limits, continuously monitoring conformance against the planned path, and automatically logging every single event and flight parameter.
So it executes the script flawlessly as long as everything is normal.
Provided all the parameters are within normal limits, yes.
So where does the human element remain absolutely indispensable?
Judgment. The human handles risk acceptance. The machine can tell you the CT link quality has dropped to 50%. The human decides if continuing the mission at 50% link quality is worth the goal, given the current weather and airspace density.
They manage the abnormal and emergency decisions.
Exactly, weighing context that the system just can't process, like sudden, unexpected ground activity or conflicting alerts. They also manage airspace nuance and edge cases. Automation might know a flight is legally allowed at 350 feet, but the human might know that a critical, unannounced construction lift is operating at that altitude today.
And finally, crew resource management, CRM, and ethical considerations.
Yes.
We hear that term from manned aviation all the time. How does CRM apply inside a drone control room?
It's critical for managing workload and ensuring non-punitive challenge. In the Ops Center, it means the airspace monitor, who might be less experienced than the Ops Sup, must feel empowered and procedurally obligated to call out a safety violation or question a tactical decision made by the FEC or the Ops Sup if they see a breach of procedure.
Can you give us a practical example of that in action?
Certainly. Say the flight coordinator is highly focused on a payload issue, a level 2 caution on a sensor, and they momentarily miss a notification about low battery margin for a drone that's returning to base.
Tunnel vision.
Classic tunnel vision. The safety officer, observing the FC's narrowed focus and the flight path deviation on their screen, must instantly interject. FC, confirm energy margin for drone 7, deviation detected from RTH vector. The system has to enforce that the safety team takes priority over the mission team when risk escalates.
So CRM is the framework that ensures those interjections happen immediately and constructively.
It is, and if the FCC is managing 3 aircraft and the OPSUP is managing 15, the display technology is their cognitive safety net. The displays have to be ruthlessly designed to distill millions of data points into just a few critical, actionable visual cues.
What are the absolute must-haves for the SC's cockpit then?
You need multiple monitors to break out information silos. The main screen is the mission map. It shows not just the live position, but the complex geofences, ground risk overlays with population data, and most importantly, the operational intent, the reserved airspace.
Let's focus on that operational intent. This is a foundational concept for scaling BVLOS.
It is. Operational intent is defining the aircraft's reservation in the sky in 4 dimensions. 3 spatial coordinates plus time. It's the agreed-upon pre-planned path, including buffers for a specific flight, and this intent is often filed with a UTM service.
And this leads directly to conformance monitoring.
Yes. This is the real-time check of promise versus position. The system constantly checks if the aircraft's actual position is adhering to its operational intent volume. If the deviation exceeds an acceptable tolerance, say, it goes outside the reserved volume by 10 meters, or it's 30 seconds behind schedule, an immediate alert is generated.
And this is critical for collision risk reduction.
Especially in dynamic, dense airspace where multiple operators might have overlapping or adjacent 4D reservations. The system has to quickly calculate the probability of conflict due to that deviation, allowing the human FC to intervene long before the drone actually conflicts with another reserved volume.
So what does the ops supervisor see, summarizing all this complexity?
They can't be looking at 3 or 4 individual FC consoles. They need a single integrated fleet status board. This board tracks all the active missions, the staffing status, critical KPIs like fleet C2 reliability scores or near-miss frequency, and visual flags for any system-wide anomalies like a regional weather event or a network failure.
It's a high-level tool for resource allocation and risk assessment, not for tactical flying.
Exactly.
In a high-stress, multi-aircraft environment, if every person starts shouting alerts at once, the situation just devolves into panic.
Immediately, discipline and communication is paramount. The Ops Center requires a robust internal comms architecture designed to segment chatter. You can't have the safety officer discussing a checklist violation on the same channel the FEC is using to issue an emergency command.
So how do they segment that communication flow?
Through dedicated intercom loops. A flight loop involves the Ops Up and all the active FCs, focusing purely on tactical commands, trajectory changes, C2 status. A separate safety loop involves the Ops Sup, the safety officer, and the airspace monitor, focusing exclusively on procedural adherence, hazard calls, and traffic deconfliction.
So you're separating the mission execution chat from the safety oversight chat?
You have to. And for preventing chaos in multi-aircraft management, strict ownership rules are necessary. Every aircraft must be assigned to one flight coordinator at a time, and that assignment must be visible to everyone on the fleet status board.
And they use standardized phraseology, like air traffic control.
Just like ATC, you don't say, bring it home now. You say, drone 5, command-initiated RTH, confirm status green. This clarity eliminates ambiguity under stress. And finally, alert prioritization is key. The system has to distinguish between a Level 3 warning act, now an immediate safety hazard, and a Level 2 caution monitor and adjust mission, like a degraded link.
And those alerts are routed only to the assigned FC and the OPSO.
Right, to prevent the entire room from reacting to a minor localized issue.
Okay, let's talk about the critical art of the handoff. Handoffs transferring control or responsibility are statistically some of the most dangerous periods in any complex operation. If situational awareness drops during that transfer, the safety margin just evaporates.
Handoffs have to be practiced until they are rote muscle memory, and they must be logged religiously. The procedures dictate how situational awareness is maintained across that break.
Let's detail the console-to-console handoff between two flight coordinators during a long mission.
Okay, this is the most common tactical transfer. It requires a wobble confirmation backed by a system log. Step 1. The outgoing FC stabilizes the drone, usually placing it into a GPS-coordinated holding state, removing any active trajectory changes.
Step 2.
The outgoing FC provides a clear, concise state brief. Drone 7, mission running for 45 minutes, battery 63%, C2 link green, no active alerts, airspace clear.
And step 3.
The receiving FC must verbally confirm readiness, and only then do they initiate the control transfer via a specific software command, the take charge button. The system has to log the exact millisecond the transfer occurred and who accepted the risk. No verbal confirmation, no transfer.
Then you have the more complex shift handoff, transitioning the entire ops center from a day crew to a night crew.
This requires a broader, more structural transfer of risk. It must include a written log of all active issues, known intermittent equipment problems, any open weather advisories, the current staffing status, and crucially, it has to brief the incoming team on the current risk posture.
So you're handing off problems, not just a clean slate.
You're handing off systemic problems, not just aircraft status. For example, transferring from a daylight utility inspection crew to a night thermal inspection crew involves unique risks. The briefing might state, Drone 4 requires immediate ground pre-flight check for debris. Thermal indicated potential bird strike at 0400 hours, unconfirmed visually.
And the briefing concludes with the incoming ops supervisor formally signing the log.
Accepting control and the overall risk posture for the room and the entire fleet. We also have to address the human-to-automation handoff. Every mode change manual, guided, autonomous, has to be clearly visible on the console, logged instantly, and often verbalized by the FJC, ensuring there is zero ambiguity over who or what has command authority.
None of this structure works without a robust governance framework. We keep mentioning the Safety Management System, or SMS. This is the organizational layer that proves to the regulator that the business is serious about safety.
And that governance structure starts with the SOPs, the Standard Operating Procedures. This is the organization's written contract. It defines how every single scenario is handled, from routine launch to emergency landing. They are the fixed rules.
And the SMS is the continuous improvement engine that evolves those SOPs.
Exactly. The Ops Center has to maintain a culture that minds mistakes, not hides them. Every near miss, every level 2 caution, every procedural deviation must be logged. That data is then aggregated and analyzed.
And if the analysis shows a pattern?
If it shows that aircraft Type X consistently suffers C2 loss at 40 kilometers in specific weather patterns, the SMS mandates a change. Maybe new hardware, new training, or a change in the SOP to restrict that aircraft to a 35-kilometer range in those conditions. The SMS forces organizational learning.
Finally, let's talk about the unsung hardware that keeps the whole mission stable. What's critical, but often overlooked.
3 things: power, time, and network. Every critical piece of control room gear must have an uninterruptible power supply, a UPS, so that if facility power is lost, the control room has plenty of time to command all active drones to a safe RTH or landing.
Network.
Network segmentation is crucial. The mission-critical ops network has to be isolated and prioritized from general internet access or guest networks to ensure C2 packets are never dropped because someone is streaming video.
And the most vital:
time sync. It's so vital and often so complex. Logs from the ground control station, the aircraft, the airspace monitor, the UTM service, the ops sup console, they all must correlate perfectly down to the millisecond using synchronized GPS timestamps.
So for an accident investigation, you know exactly what happened first.
If you have a C2 failure alert at 10.05.32.400 and a DAA alert for converging traffic at 10.05.32.450, you must know definitively which happened first. Without disciplined time sync, correlating those events is impossible, and proving system safety to a regulator becomes a nightmare.
This deep dive has profoundly demonstrated that scaling beyond visual line of sight is not a drone problem. It is fundamentally an operations center problem. The drone is the robot. The control room, with its convergence of defined roles, sophisticated tools, and rigid rules, is the central node that manages safety and risk.
The complicity is necessary. The Ops Center is where automation, human roles, and external airspace services are all integrated. For the industry to scale commercially, that room has to be structurally and procedurally infallible.
To crystallize this, we want to leave you with the 3 core takeaways that define a scalable, professional control room. 1. The control room must see everything.
That means fused, multi-layer displays presenting airspace, health, data, and ground risk overlays, all designed to manage human cognitive load.
2. The human element must decide.
They have to own the judgment, call approving or rejecting automation suggestions, and set the ultimate risk tolerance for continuing operations in any degraded or abnormal mode.
And 3. The system must prove everything.
Robust, time-synced logging feeds the safety management system. That's what drives organizational learning and provides that irrefutable regulatory evidence.
And this systemic rigor is what facilitates that pivotal regulatory shift we discussed. The industry is moving from prove each individual BVLOS flight is safe in isolation. That's the waiver era.
To the Part 108 era of prove your organization's integrated system governed by the Ops Center is safe for sustained commercial business.
So, if the flight coordinator's primary function is shifting away from manual control and towards supervisory oversight, risk management, and human automation collaboration, what new training and ethical frameworks must be put in place to ensure that these humans, relying so heavily on the automation that works 99% of the time, still maintain the acute vigilance and essential, maybe rusty skills needed to effectively and correctly intervene during that critical 1% of abnormal, complex life or death events?
That's the challenge of the supervisory human in the age of autonomy. That's a wrap on today's mission, Commander. See above, go beyond, get ahead. For more training, tools, and intel, head to skycommander.ca. If you learned something new, share it, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star debrief.